The spark that changed everything. Fire and the birth of humanity. What if I told you that the most important moment in human history wasn't the invention of the wheel, the discovery of agriculture, or even the development of language, but rather a single spark that ignited 2.2 million years ago? Picture this. A small band of early hominins huddled in the East African savanna, their eyes reflecting not the familiar terror of approaching darkness, but something entirely new, the dancing flames of controlled fire. In that moment, as primitive hands fed dried grass to flickering embers, our ancestors didn't just discover fire, they discovered themselves. The world before the flame. To understand the magnitude of this discovery, we must first step into a world utterly alien to our modern sensibilities. East Africa 2.2 million years ago was a landscape of endless horizons where survival meant living moment to moment. Our early ancestors, likely Homo habilis or their contemporaries, possessed brains roughly 1/3 the size of modern humans, yet they were already showing signs of the ingenuity that would eventually conquer the planet. These early hominins lived in a perpetual state of vulnerability. As twilight descended across the acacia-dotted plains, they faced the terrifying reality that had governed life for millions of years. Darkness meant death. Lions, leopards, hyenas, and other nocturnal predators owned the night, while our ancestors could only huddle together in trees or cave openings, hoping dawn would find them alive. Their diet was a constant struggle. Tough, fibrous plant materials that required enormous amounts of time and energy to digest, supplemented by occasional scavenged meat when they could chase other predators away from carcasses. Their powerful jaw muscles and large molars evolved specifically to handle this challenging fare. But the nutritional return was pitifully low compared to the energy expended. Then everything changed with a spark. The Prometheus moment. The exact moment fire was first controlled by human hands remains shrouded in prehistoric mystery, but archaeological evidence from sites like Swartkrans in South Africa and Chezawanja in Kenya suggests our ancestors achieved this remarkable feat around 2.2 million years ago. But how did it happen? Imagine a young hominin, perhaps foraging near the smoldering remains of a lightning-struck tree, while others in the group instinctively fled from the mysterious dancing light. This individual, driven by curiosity that would become humanity's defining trait, approached the glowing embers. The warmth was intoxicating. The light pushed back the shadows that held so much terror. But the truly revolutionary moment came when this ancestor made the cognitive leap from simply enjoying fire to understanding it could be maintained. Picture the scene, carefully carrying glowing branches back to the group, experimenting with different materials to keep the flames alive. Discovering that dry grass and twigs could feed the hungry flames while green vegetation would smother them. This wasn't just tool use. This was the mastery of energy itself. The alchemy of heat, the first kitchen. But here's where the story takes a turn that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of life on Earth. Someone decided to put food in the fire. The discovery of cooking was likely accidental. Perhaps a piece of meat fell into the flames, or tubers were buried in hot ashes. But when that first cooked morsel was tasted, it triggered a revolution more profound than any political uprising in recorded history. Cooked food was a revelation. Meat became tender, easier to tear and chew. Tough plant fibers broke down into digestible nutrients. Foods that were previously inedible or even toxic became not just palatable but delicious. The energy required for digestion plummeted while the nutritional yield skyrocketed. Archaeological evidence suggests these early cooks developed surprisingly sophisticated techniques. They learned to create earth ovens, burying food in pits lined with hot coals and covering them with earth to create slow, even heating. They discovered that different foods required different cooking methods, that meat needed direct flame while tubers thrived in buried heat. The first kitchens weren't rooms with granite countertops, but sacred spaces where the alchemical transformation of raw into cooked took place. These cooking sites became gathering points, social centers where the group would come together not just to eat, but to share, to communicate, to bond. The cascading revolution, the mastery of fire and cooking triggered a cascade of evolutionary changes that would reshape our ancestors physically, mentally, and socially. As cooked food provided more nutrition with less effort, the massive jaw muscles our ancestors needed for processing raw food began to shrink. The reduction in jaw muscle size allowed the skull to expand, creating space for larger brains. This wasn't just correlation, it was causation. The energy savings from easier digestion could now be redirected to building and maintaining larger, more complex brains. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham argues that cooking was so crucial to human evolution that we literally cooked our way to bigger brains. But the changes went beyond biology. Fire extended the day, creating the first artificial expansion of productive time. Work could continue after sunset. Social interactions evolved as groups gathered around fires, leading to more complex communication patterns. The need to maintain fires required planning, cooperation, and the delegation of responsibilities. Fire also provided protection, allowing our ancestors to sleep on the ground rather than in trees, leading to more restful sleep and further energy conservation. Controlled burning could be used to hunt, driving animals toward waiting hunters or clearing underbrush to reveal hiding prey. The social hearth. Perhaps most remarkably, fire created the first truly social spaces in human history. The hearth became the center of community life, a place where food was shared, stories were told, even before complex language evolved, and social bonds were strengthened. The act of sitting around a fire, sharing cooked food, and gazing into dancing flames may have been humanity's first shared transcendent experience. These fireside gatherings likely accelerated the development of language. With extended evening hours and the safety provided by fire's protective light, our ancestors had both the time and motivation for increasingly complex communication. The hearth became humanity's first classroom, boardroom, and theater all in one. But here's the most intriguing question of all. Was the control of fire the spark that ignited consciousness itself? The burning question. Some researchers propose that the regular use of fire and cooking created a positive feedback loop that accelerated brain development at an unprecedented rate. The enlarged brains enabled more sophisticated fire management, which in turn provided better nutrition for even larger brains. This cycle may have compressed what should have been millions of years of evolution into mere hundreds of thousands. Consider this. The gap between the first controlled use of fire and the emergence of modern humans is remarkably short in evolutionary terms. Were we literally cooking our way to consciousness? Did the dancing flames that our ancestors stared into night after night help ignite the spark of self-awareness? The evidence suggests that fire didn't just change what our ancestors ate, it changed who they were. The control of fire represents humanity's first true conquest of nature, our first step from being subject to natural forces to becoming their master. The eternal flame today. As we tap buttons on devices powered by controlled energy, as we cook meals in appliances that channel ancient principles of heat and transformation, we are still living in the world that first spark created 2.2 million years ago. Every light switch we flip, every meal we cook, every gathering around a fireplace connects us to that prehistoric moment when curious hands first fed fuel to flames. The next time you strike a match or light a candle, pause for a moment. You're performing humanity's oldest ritual, participating in an unbroken chain that stretches back through 2.2 million years to those first courageous ancestors who reached toward the light and in doing so reached toward everything we would become. That first controlled fire didn't just cook our food, it forged our humanity. And in its dancing flames, we glimpsed our first vision of a future where curiosity, courage, and ingenuity could transform not just what we ate, but who we were destined to become. The spark that changed everything still burns within us today.